The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
Had a pretty shitty life. People can change, right?
A lot of people wish they could revisit their childhood memories, whether it was that one time at the beach, or first ever Christmas where they got what they wanted, or even playing their first game and falling in love with the storytelling of video games. However, time goes on, and we can't really go back and relive or re-experience the things that made a lot of us who we are today. But could you have the same experience if you recreate the circumstances? Well, that's the point of today's video. I recently played Silent Hill 2 Remake over on my Twitch channel, and as someone who played the original, I was very confused. And it made me think of comparing two games that came out recently that also came out around the same time for both the original and the remakes. So please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and visit my Twitch channel where I have been streaming more frequently. Enjoy the video, and let's start things off with Silent Hill 2. Both the original and the remake start off relatively the same. James is in the bathroom wondering how did he get a letter from his dead wife 3 years later. The difference is the quality of each scene, but does give off the same level of intrigue. Most things in the story remain true to the original, and that's something commendable considering it would have been difficult to expand on anything with a story like Silent Hill 2. It was unique back in 2001, and while there are a lot of games that offer the same level of twists and turns today, I didn't go into this expecting much change in the plot. However, in terms of gameplay, a lot has changed. Some is positive and a lot is negative. Of course, the first major thing you notice is the overhaul in the quality. The remake, while it's stunning visually, I found that the original was far more creative and didn't have issues that haven't been fixed yet, like the massive amount of frame drops despite the fact every possible quality setting was set to low. And I was using DLSS, but I was still facing a lot of problems. The only way for me to fix that was to mod the game, and if any game forces the community to fix their issues before they get onto it, doesn't sound like a game I trouble myself with. But moving past the optimization issues, the game does look much better. The facial animations were well done. The world did give off a feel of being abandoned, which is one of the reasons why I fell in love with the town. But besides the quality, the second significant positive change is the gameplay style. The original had stationary cameras and a bit of clunky controls, while the remake is third person and plays much smoother. I could talk about the voice acting or the character models, but I feel like a lot of people are conflicting about them, so I'll point out that while Angela, Eddie, and James are played by different people from the original, I still like their storylines and enjoy the voice acting better than I did in the original. I know that many Silent Hill fans wouldn't agree, but that is simply my opinion. Yet, one of the negative points I faced was the fact that the remake had changed a lot of locations where certain things would occur, and continued to do this unnecessary fan service. No, not that kind of fan service. I mean the constant references to the original. They wanted to add Easter eggs for the die-hard fans, but didn't come off that way to me. In the original, you walk under a bridge and find yourself a wooden plank with a radio and fight your first monster. However, in the remake, you walk up to the same bridge and the game switched to a camera angle with glitch effect and a music note. That's the fan service I was talking about. Throughout the entire game, you'll find significant locations around the map, and that's their nod to the original. At the start, I thought this was really cool, but I also found it a bit lazy. Yes, they recreated the puzzles differently, but it also felt like it was an afterthought. There wasn't much effort put into it, nor did they write lines for James to comment on it or even relate it to a secret weapon or an outfit if you get all of them. Just a music note and a glitching camera effect that I can do editing a video. See, it wasn't that hard. And speaking of unlockables, the original had settings to adjust different things, from bullet pickups to even extra puzzles if doing them on hard wasn't enough. They even had hyperspray and chainsaw as weapons. The remake, however, gives you filters and a chainsaw. They did keep the extra memos and ceremonial items required for different endings, but removed the hyperspray, which seems like it could have been the most fun weapon to use. One of the things I've seen people mention was the constant hand-holding in the game. James auto-equips his weapon. Now, at first, this wasn't a bad idea. I mean, the original game made you go into the menu and switch or equip something you want. And while that was part of its charm, it was still very annoying to do. However, he auto-equips his weapon when there is an enemy nearby, which takes away from any sort of field danger. While replaying the original to get footage, I found myself feeling that intensity I get from playing Silent Hill games, not knowing if there's an enemy in front of me or the game just messing with me using the radio. While going through the remake, I felt safe the entire time exploring. Despite hearing the radio static, James never equipped his weapon, so to me, I knew I was safe roaming the streets of Silent Hill. And the biggest change was the fact that they added dodge mechanic with extremely forgiving iframes. As a matter of fact, I've managed to beat the entire game without dying once. I don't even know what the death screen looks like. The developers over at Blooper said they were expanding more on the story of Silent Hill, since they did stay true to the original, but I wish they actually expanded more. The idea was to flesh out the story. They added the motel for you to visit and interact with instead of the bowling alley. But if you go to the bowling alley, then Maria goes inside and they have a fun interaction and comment why she wouldn't go inside since she didn't want to in the original. But doing that doesn't flesh out the story, doesn't give any new details, doesn't change much or give me a new perspective or an understanding. If the intent was to make the exploring of the town more appealing, then they've done it. They did a great job at that. But to expand on the story like they promised? Nah, not so much. I find that the most appealing change they did was the boss fights. The first fight I had with Pyramid Head was in a basement instead of the stairs. The fight remained the same, where no bullets or anything can hurt him, just survive for a duration of time. However, the environment was far better. Although the original gave me a feel of being trapped and powerless. As I said before, the dodging mechanic is very forgiving. So while I was locked in a room with someone who can split me in half, not the fun way, I wasn't really scared or felt trapped. Then we have the flesh lip monster, and it's done much better. The destructible environment was intense. Before the tiles on the ceiling fell off, I was worried about where the monster may or may not drop down from, but when the fight switched to the ground, it had a degree of difficulty where I thought I might die. The attack patterns weren't easy to predict, so it was really enjoyable to go against it. After that, we have Eddie Dombrowski fight. While it is similar to the original, in the remake you had less visibility, which made for an interesting encounter. Eddie's use of the carcasses and freezer fog was pretty smart. I got frustrated a bit because it reminded me of the fight between Ellie and the weirdo after he started hiding, except in Silent Hill you weren't using stealth. The Mandarin fight was simply okay. The dual Pyramid Head fight was done better, but it was also forgiven thanks to the dodge mechanics, and the Mary fight was more visually appealing than the first one, but almost similar in combat. However, the fight I was most impressed by was the abstract daddy. I love Angela's storyline and character. I've said before, if we were to go by the fact that Silent Hill caters its horrors to the terrible people in it, then the existence of Angela makes no sense, since she is a victim of her environment and not her action. I understand what she had to do to live, but I also understand that Silent Hill is an unforgiving, cruel mistress. To bring someone like Angela and force her to relive what she went through seems like a joke. So while having the boss fight with the representation of her experience, I was enamored with it. The destructible environment, the TV with the static and voice lines giving you a chilling look into what she heard her entire life, being unable to fight back for years and even running away seemed futile. It's not that she never tried. Angela tried running away before, but was found and returned and abused even more. But I am not too in love with her story to turn a blind eye like her mother did. I am aware that there's a chance she's looking for her mama to make sure she finishes the job. Maybe that's why she was invited to Silent Hill. But everyone else committed horrible acts. And if seeing something and not saying anything is considered a terrible act, then her mother had it coming. I feel no remorse towards the people who felt her wrath. But that's the Silent Hill remake for you. Overall, I'd say it was an extremely underwhelming experience. Apart from the boss fight, I would replay those and enjoy it every second of it. But the hand-holding with the auto-equip, the constant recalls to the original, the idea of expanding on the world but barely doing anything to make me feel a change really feels lazy. I am not against the remake. I'd recommend it wholeheartedly. It preserved the title I loved as a kid, and I can't say that the gameplay and controls are a negative thing. I would give it a whole 1 thumb up. But let's switch over to the other remake and see what we can glean out of it compared to the original source material. To tell you the complete truth, I am 100% biased towards Resident Evil 4. Thankfully, I will not be comparing it to Silent Hill 2. I will be comparing it to the original release. So here's the problem with the remake. They were feeding off my nostalgia too much. The game released with an overhaul of everything, including the music. But if you want the original soundtrack, then you had to pay for the deluxe edition. It includes multiple outfits, headgear, and weapons, and one expanded treasure map that doesn't even exist for the DLC. I didn't care for the outfits or the headgear since the game has a decent number of unlockables that should suffice, and I never used any of the weapons given to me for pre-ordering the deluxe edition. I bought that for the music. And was it worth it? Depends on how you feel about the game. For an average player who doesn't care about the original or never played it, then no, it's not worth it. The outfits are mediocre. I mean, villain Leon looks like he's knocking on death's door, and the romantic has some tight pants. The weapons are complete dogshit even after maxing them out. You'll have a better experience maxing out the Red 9 or literally any other base gun in the game. However, if you played the original, then hearing the music again is worth it. It doesn't change the experience of the remake, but I loved listening to it and I still do. Another negative point is the DLC. The original game came out with multiple game modes. You had Separate Ways, Assignment Ada, the Mercenaries, and the base game. The remake added Mercenaries mode 13 days after the release. Several months later, added more content to it, did not have Assignment Ada, but did release Separate Ways as a paid DLC despite the fact the 2005 release had everything from the start. But let's talk about some positives in the game. Obviously, the quality of the game is better. I mean, Leon looks a bit rough to me, but I am comparing him to the Stunner from 2005. In terms of voice acting, I actually prefer the remake. I know that's crazy. There's no cheesy one-liners or grunts of confidence from Leon, apart from the bingo line. They kept that one. But it feels more gritty. The game shows Leon had gone through some dark times, and it's really well presented in the remake. But what peaks for me is the gunplay. Leon's ability to switch the way he handles the weapons shows experience. In cutscenes, when he switches from a gun to a knife, or even moving and taking cover, tells me that the confidence to send one man out was not misplaced. It's super fun being able to block and parry projectiles, and there are no iframes here. It simply makes sense to me. I mean, why wouldn't Leon be able to block an axe thrown at him at full velocity, or even parry a swinging attack? He's been trained by elite level of military combatants, and at some point in the future was the president's personal bodyguard. I don't think he gets enough credit for being the unit that he is, but Chris gets all sorts of credit for punching a boulder. Now let's talk about the characters and story. They delivered and then some. One of the biggest mysteries for me in the original was Luis. I'm glad to see them expanded on his section and given us more depth to his character. Ashley was even more complex in her personality. She thinks for herself instead of just blindly following what she's told. Even when you ask her to stop following, she keeps her distance but doesn't just stand still. For the longest while, I thought this mechanic was worse than the original, but replaying the game and seeing the fault in the mechanic really made me appreciate the remake. If you tell Ashley to stand still, she won't move. The only good place to be is to hide her in a dumpster. Otherwise, she's just a sit and duck. Ada Wong actually showed she cared about Leon in the remake. She wasn't just after a bag. In terms of models, the original wins me over easily, but personality-wise, and I know, how dare I mention personality in this day and age, I'd pick the remake over the original. I might just want someone to care about me like she cares, but that's unrelated here. Let's talk about the boss fights. Technically, the first boss fight you face is the Chainsaw Man, and I love the way things are different now. Sometimes the villagers will hold you down while the Chainsaw Man is coming at you. The level of detail is fantastic as well. If you go under certain structures, the guy just destroys it with his chainsaw, and it is peak redesign of a beloved enemy. The second boss fight you have is the Big Cheese, although they don't call him that in the remake. His fight was overhauled to a point where it felt brand new. The first stage is of course the same, but when he switches over and starts throwing things at you is what really set it apart from the original. Then we have Garrador, or the blind butter knife guy. His fight hasn't changed much. It is still the same, but the environment did change. They added small dangling chains from the ceiling that will make noise when you hit it with your body, making you impossible to miss. That's attention to detail I wasn't expecting. The Ramon Salazar fight was far better as well, with a small yet open area to roam around. The new ways you can get damaged by him made the fight intense. The bile he spits at you, while it might not kill you in one hit, it is very annoying to deal with. In the original, you were basically on the platform moving right to left. The remake makes the fight far better in my opinion. Then we have the Krauser fight that felt about the same. And I know I didn't mention the giant fight because those are still the same. Shoot until the parasite, then stab, 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 stab. Although the dog is still a good boy. And no, I'm not just talking about Leon. Finally, we have the Sadler fight. And I'm sad to report that it was very mediocre fight. If you manage to damage him enough, then he'll fly to a structure and shoot bile at you while bugs annoy you. Those bugs are easily dealt with, and you can hide behind a small area in the boss arena to stop the bile from damaging you. I feel like they could have done better in this fight sequence. Maybe make the fight more intense by forcing a smaller area. Instead, you have a decent sized place to go against him and run around to avoid damage from either the bugs or his long distance spit. Fighting Salazar's right hand was more intense due to the small area I was confined in. I mean, most of the fight was me pressing dodge, but when he was fighting me head on, there was a chance I might lose. Plus, they forced you to use the environment to help with the fight. Despite that fact, his fight still felt the same. Let's talk about separate ways. I said that the original released with everything included, but in the remake, you had to pay for that DLC. Now, the downside of that, even if you buy the deluxe edition, you're not getting the DLC for free. The upside is that they actually added more to it, including a boss fight that was removed from the base game. The It fight was for Leon to take on. However, this time, Ada takes a crack at it. Just like the original, the fight is in 2 stages and has different approaches. Both are fairly easy if you have enough grenades. Which reminds me, there was a lot taken out from the base game, like incendiary grenades, the RPL 412, the laser room, some boss transformations, even one-liners. It almost feels like you're paying for less content nowadays with most remakes. There's part of me that is very glad that remakes are happening again. They preserve titles that otherwise would have been lost to time. But the other part of me believes that these remakes preserve themselves. I mean, Silent Hill 2 from 2001 is far better and superior compared to the remake. It wasn't their most successful game to date for no reason. If you can handle the controls and camera, then you would have more fun playing the original. But also the remake of Resident Evil 4, in my opinion, is better than the 2005 release because they changed a lot of things that make sense for the character in their storylines. So for the case of this video, despite the fact I enjoyed playing both the remakes, they did not recreate or make me feel like I did once before. Despite the fact I paid extra money to have the music of the original game, despite the fact I played both games by myself and in the dark like I did before, I still felt like these games are their own entity. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video. Come join me on Twitch, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe.